The 10-second delay here.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the Strike Zone podcast. I am Joe Schultes, featured my co-host, Joe Herzog.
Hey, guys.
We are here tonight with the team from the all-electric flight that Lafayette College actually ran last fall, and the Northeast Lightning Club was actually part of. Next to me here, other way. That way. We got Remy Octay, the pilot of the plane and the brains behind the entire crazy operation we're going to get into tonight. And up here on my other side here, I'm really just making up these directions here. Pete Lamarine, he's the I like to call him my VP of the Northeast Lightning Club. He actually organized this for the club on our end with Remy. So these guys are the real organizers and to this entire event, and let's jump right into it here. We'll start with Pete. How did you hear about the flight, and how did you get our club into the entire thing?
So I think Remy had actually reached out to someone even before I had reached back out to Remy, because I think Remy, there were a couple of gaps. They needed some coverage of some Lightning trucks, mostly on the way back. So I was more than happy to get involved. I had just gotten my truck recently, and yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to be part of two world records? And no, really, and the people that I got to meet as a result, I consider people that I will consider, very close to me for the rest of my life. I was thrilled. Still to this day, it amazes me at what was accomplished.
Absolutely.
By so many people.
So just a brief rundown here. This is an electric airplane, and we're taking it across how many states, Remy?
Four
states. So give me the rundown. Where did this come from?
Yeah, so I got my pilot's license during the COVID lockdown year, the summer of 2020. Took the year off from college, wanted to find some projects to do, and decided to get my pilot's license. My grandparents have been flying for 55 years, so it was an opportunity to do that. Ever since getting my license, I was thinking to myself, what does this really mean? What am I going to do with this? How does this really integrate with my environmental studies major here at Lafayette, as well as my engineering studies degree? And I came across electric airplanes. I'm really into electric vehicles and was like, wow, this is pretty cool that they also make electric planes, but there's so few of them. And I realized that this technology was coming down the pipe. It wasn't as far along as electric cars. They're only the plane that you see up there. That's the plane that I flew, Pipistrel Alpha Electro. There are only 12 of those in the US right now. So this is almost as if we're 25 years ago with EVs, where they were kind of a niche, very niche product. And I said, this is something that maybe the technology is not where it needs to be for full adoption, but we need people to start thinking about this, seeing this, talking about it, investing in it, because that's really what's going to help us get to the point of full adoption. And that then kind of formulated into this idea of, I want to fly one of these planes. How could we demonstrate this and get people exposed to it? And then thinking of national anthem flyovers. That's typically where people outside of air shows see cool new planes. So I was like, that's a cool idea. Lafayette and Lehigh, we have the longest running college football rivalry in the country. And what better place to do it? This was the last year that I was going to be a student at Lafayette College when we hosted the game at home at Lafayette, because it alternates every year, Lafayette at Lehigh. And came up with this plan, put together a 2-page proposal, sat down with the president of Lafayette College and said, hey, this is what I want to do. President Hurd gave me the double thumbs up and said, go for it. Let's make it happen.
That's awesome. That's great. So you ended up building a team for this entire event. Obviously, you're going to need a ground team. So what was the reason you needed a ground team in the Lightning Club? Where did that come in?
Yeah, so the plane is great. It's fun to fly. It's fully electric. But as anybody who's familiar with electric aviation might have seen or read about in articles, the range of these aircraft is really small. I downloaded the whole FAA database of every single registered aircraft in the United States to figure out where these 12 planes were physically. You can figure out who owns them. And then I just started calling people. Hey, are you using this plane? Would you be interested in doing this flyover with us? Just so happened that the one that was closest to us in Hartford, Connecticut, was also owned by Phil and Lindsay, who were all on board with making this happen. So it was quite convenient, but quite convenient in the sense that we only had to fly it from Connecticut to Pennsylvania and not from Florida to Pennsylvania or California to Pennsylvania. But that still posed a pretty big hurdle to make that happen. And we needed to recharge it at en route airports. But then you look at airports and no one has electric plane charging because no one's flying these planes. So that then necessitated a mobile power pack solution. And it was either a big gas generator, which kind of would be the antithesis of the whole purpose of this project.
Facebook
and then my uncle, my uncle and my dad were like, hey, howdy, Zach. My uncle and dad were saying, hey, there's this new F-150 Lightning. It has this really high power plug. It's different than the Rivian because it can supply 240 volts at 30 amps instead of just 120 at 15, I think.
Yep.
Maybe we can make that work, and started diving into that to figure it out.
Awesome. So joining us now, just to give you a little intro here, this is Zach. He's pretty much, I like to call him my partner in crime during the one leg I was a part of. He was the ground crew chief for the logistics of getting our Lightnings to where they needed to be for the event. So Zach, thank you for joining us. He may not be able to hear me.
He's here for moral support, though.
Zach, we can't hear you, bud. All right. So I think you initially reached out to Ford. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm just letting Zach know to fix his audio there. So yeah, we reached out to Ford because a professor that I worked with closely here at Lafayette is college buddies with the executive chairman of Ford, Bill Ford. And we put together a pitch and sent it to his office, and heard back from them. And they said that they really liked the project, but they just physically did not have the vehicles to give us 4 trucks for a month for us to use. Which, I mean, albeit like going into that was kind of a big ask. Yes, the vehicle had just been released. Every dealership everywhere wanted one to be able to demonstrate them. So we were going into it.
They give
I wanted one.
They give T-shirts and mugs. Okay, that's what they give. They don't give Lightnings, right, Joe?
Yeah.
But they helped in an even more impactful way because Jim Farley tweeted out the project, and that's what connected us with the Northeast Lightning Club and all these other owners that were more than willing to help. And that was even better than we could have asked for with. I'm glad that's how it turned out. Like looking back, I'm glad that they didn't just say, yeah, here's 4 trucks, go have fun, because it really would not have turned out to be the project that it did if we didn't meet all these amazing people who knew all this stuff about the trucks, timing the driving, timing all the charging and stuff. So it wasn't just the trucks we needed, it was also the expertise of the drivers behind them.
And you would have trashed those trucks, let's be honest.
Yeah.
College kids in a Lightning, I won't let my son in my truck. So,
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well,
So
if I
Zach,
can
you
just-
were. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
If I could just jump in, it already is astounding me just as someone hearing this story for the first time. You must be a heck of a salesman, because it sounds like you had like 5 different groups of people that you needed to get to say yes to you, and the fact that you got one to say yes, and it's incredible that this even took place, because any one of all these links, something could have fallen apart and your dream dies right there, right? Basically.
Oh, I lost so much sleep. I had flow charts, like if they said yes, they said no, like
Yeah.
scenario planning the heck out of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So you are spot on with that statement.
Joe, you haven't met Remy, but if you are in a room with him, if he's selling you, whatever he's selling, you're going to buy it. And I'm not kidding. I mean that with some humility. You're a humble guy, Remy, but what you've done is pretty outstanding. And what you've done, you converted a bus. I mean, I read that whole story. It's unbelievable what you've accomplished. I'm 54, and I feel like I need to get moving here with what I'm doing with my life.
Right.
Yeah. The Lightning Club is helping. So.
Yeah. And you're very integral to this whole project and running the whole tailgate too. So,
well.
So
you got lots rock and rolling.
So there was two different basically phases of this entire thing, right? So the trip to get the airplane from its owner's location to nearby at least, and then the leg back. But in between, there was also a huge tailgate and basically a giant advertisement for the F-150 Lightning at the game there. Pete, you ran that whole thing, right?
Well, so Ford had sent a vehicle and someone from Detroit. So there were two Lightnings.
Awesome.
But that one was just staged.
Yep.
My Lightning was the one getting, electrifying. How many griddles did we have? I had an espresso maker. I made Remy's dad an espresso. I was fortunate to get to talk to both your parents, Remy, and your sister. I met your sister. Very nice people. But we had several griddles. I can't tell you how many pancakes were made by the tailgate crew. So we had all this running off the one truck, and it was pretty interesting. We had a lot of people. We also had a local dealer from Holyoke, Mass, that had given us a whole bunch of Ford branded paraphernalia. So we handed it out at the tailgate. So it was great. We got a lot of wows, and how does that work?
Yeah.
And just like we do every day owning a Lightning.
Oh,
Everyone wants to. I was camping yesterday. Everyone wants to see and talk to you about it. It's thank God we're part of a club, because you might as well be. Everyone that meets you wants to know about this truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
one thing. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
No, you're good.
One thing that stands out to me when I look at these photos, so Remy, easily, so this module that's sitting in the back of the Lightning, that's how you charge the plane for each stop, correct?
Yeah, that's the AC to DC converter that's usually built into EVs, but for weight savings, they make it an outboard device for the plane.
Okay, so you are indeed sucking power from the battery of the Lightning to your plane. So it's not like you could have thrown this big thing in the back of an ICE F-150. I just wanted to clarify.
Oh, no, not at all. Yeah,
Okay.
And even the hybrid F-150 that they have that has I believe it's a 240 volt outlet, it maxes out at 1.2 kilowatts.
Okay.
So yeah, the only vehicle commercially produced vehicle in the world that would have worked for this is the F-150 Lightning, because of the power it can supply through a singular plug, because that's what we needed. We could have done it with a Rivian or any other car that has a normal 120 volt 15 amp plug, but then we would have been sitting at each airport for 5 hours instead of 1 hour. So it would have become a 3-day trip instead of a 1-day trip.
Wow.
So explain to me, Remy, if you want to just get into the details of the legs. We had to stop at a certain amount of airports, and myself and Pete can actually get into getting onto the tarmacs and our experiences there. But let's start with at least the charging plans and all the stops and stuff we had to make.
Yeah. Do you want me to just kind of go through each airport, or?
Yeah. I mean,
process?
Was there 4 airports? Six, right? 5.
There's 7 total, 5 en route. So Start 5, finish 7.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we started at Hartford Brainerd Airport at 3:30 a.m. Got the team up as 28 person team. We had 4 Lightning trucks. We had 3 Teslas. We had the electric plane, and then a support plane and a helicopter. So it's kind of like a little partridge in a pear tree kind of thing. The 4 trucks, 3 Teslas, 2 planes, 1 helicopter situation. So 10 vehicles total. And yeah, we had a little bad weather when we were first starting to take off. So we were about 45 minutes delayed to start the day. and then the delays started compounding each other as we hit snags. We would get to an airport, but then the truck would still be on the other side of the fence, and they needed to do a security check on the truck. And it's like, okay, so they're walking around the truck with little mirrors, make sure there's no explosives on it. They're checking everybody's driver's license. So there are all these things that you really can't plan for. But we had the helicopter had a mechanical issue, so it had to stop halfway through, and one of the trucks peeled off to take people back. We wanted to have more vehicles, like twice as many vehicles as we needed, because realistically, we only needed the electric plane and one truck. But we wanted to have more so that we could have leapfrogging teams and have more efficiency as well as more backup. But yeah, it started at 3:30 a.m. in Hartford, and then we went to it was Waterbury, Oxford, then Danbury, then Stewart, and then Greenwood Lake, and then a private field in New Jersey, and then to Braden Air Park in Pennsylvania. So those were the seven airports in total. And as various things came up and people had to deal with things, we ended the trip with the electric plane, the gas-powered plane, 2 trucks, and all 3 Teslas.
Okay.
So that was
that
not
was on the
because
way
the trucks
out.
broke down, but because people needed to go back because they were the helicopter pilots or they were other people who had something come up. So just to let it be known, the only vehicle that had a mechanical issue was a gas-powered helicopter. Nothing wrong with any electric-powered vehicles.
Well, there was a drone that took a little hit, but
Yeah, well, you know.
But it was perfectly fine. It was perfectly fine, right?
I hope. Still haven't seen the
Yeah,
video.
They keep dancing around this story, and I'm filling in the pieces. It's sounding like Joe crashed a drone into a tree. Can we
Sure
just
did.
flesh out the rest of that story?
100%
let's have
did.
it. Let's have it.
Yeah.
So shortly,
well, I'll set
Go
the
ahead.
scene and then I'll pass it to you, Joe. So
yeah, go ahead.
we had got this drone specifically for this project because we wanted to have a live stream from inside the cockpit of the plane down to the Jumbotron on the field so that people could see like inside the cockpit while we're flying. You know, like typically when they do flyovers or like the blimp goes over, something like that, they have a live stream. It's like, okay, we're going to do that too. I looked up how much all that equipment costs. It was going to be like $20,000. The school was like, yeah, maybe not. We'll do you a drone, or we'll give you a budget of like $3,000 or $4,000. I was like, okay, I can deal with that. And it's like, who does video live streaming over long distances really well? DJI, they make amazing drones. Why don't we just hold a drone in the plane, not with no props on? It's not flying. We have the remote control down by the ESPN broadcasting truck. Plug the HDMI cord into that. Now you got a video stream. Perfect. It worked wonderfully. And we then also had this drone. So aside from doing the live stream, we then took it with us on our trip back. And at one of the airports, at the private field where we were allowed to fly the drone, getting some shots, I said to Joe, hey, why don't you get some shots once I'm in the plane? Pass the controller off, and I will pass the story now to Joe.
So now, maybe 2 weeks before this whole event, I crashed my own personal drone. It was on autopilot, and it hit the side of the truck. It hit the window of the driver's window of the truck. I almost cried, but the mark came off the truck and everything. We were good. But I'm telling the story while we're out on the private airfield, and Remy is trying to charge his drone off the truck at the same time. I think it's got enough charge, he says. You can fly drones, right, Joe? I go, dude, I just got done telling you I crashed mine like 2 weeks ago. You sure you want me to do this? He's like, yeah, sure. So if you, so the plane takes off, and he had wanted me to get chase shots. So I wait for him to take off. I come up behind him. I'm hundreds of feet behind him, but I'm trying to zoom in with the lens. I'm not trying to get too close to the plane. Mm-hmm. So I'm over like the wooded area off to the side of the airfield. I'm not really over the airfield. But
thousands of feet away. Some would say.
Yeah, definitely. But like over trees that are all dead, like it's fall, so there's nothing on the trees. We're ready for the first snow.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes into an emergency landing mode because it hit 10% on the battery like almost instantly. And I had no control. I was trying to get it back over the airfield and let it do it, and it just was like, nah, I'm just gonna land here wherever I am. And I'm watching the screen. We're looking up at the sky at that point. I was like, I don't know where it is. Luckily, this specific drone you had GPS, so we were able to track it before it died. We're sprinting through the woods, and we were watching the battery go down. I think we were like 5% by the time we find it. And it was a good 60 feet in the air. Your friend said, Remy.
Yeah, it was well up there.
Yeah, we had to call it. What'd you end up doing? A tree crew, right?
Well, no. So then the trucks, right? You guys then just pulled out, right? Because you had to keep up with the plane so that you could keep charging it. And I was like, okay, we got to keep the plane moving. That's number one priority.
Oh, so bad.
But I didn't know that because I was in the plane. So I'm fine. We get to the next stop, and Zach comes up to me and goes, "Oh, so the drone's stuck in a tree." And I'm like, "The drone's stuck in a tree? What?" And he's like, "Yeah, we left it there." I'm like, "Zach, we can't just leave a $3,000 drone in a tree. We gotta go get it. It's gonna freeze tonight."
No one definitely was getting that.
So then we start coming up with ideas. We're sitting in the airport. The plane's charging. So I think Joe, you and Mike were leapfrogging us. So we were with who were we with? We were with John.
You were with us for that. You're talking about Stewart, right?
No, we were at Greenwood Lake recharging, and you guys were driving to Stewart.
We were headed to Stewart. Yep.
Yeah, so we're talking with Zach and Joe and everybody, and we're trying to figure this out. And we're like, oh, should we call a tree service company? So I call the owner of the airfield and said to him, what should we do? And he mentioned a tree service. We call the tree service. They said maybe we can help out, but nothing really definitive because they had never done stuff like this. Zach, can you hear us? Because I'll pass the story off to you if you can.
Absolutely. Sorry about the connectivity issues. I think
no worries. We're talking about the drone story, and I was just mentioning we're just getting into how we actually got to it, and you did more of that than I did, so this could not be better timing.
Oh boy. Did Joe set up why the drone needed saving?
Oh yeah. We're there. We're talking about where you guys ended up coming up with a plan to how to get it out.
Yeah. So Remy's go-to man for a lot of our help with really whatever needed doing with the project was Jeff Akopian, student emeritus, another LAF graduate, and so we knew that he was. Remy called Jeff, and we knew that Jeff could come and help recall the drone from this tree in New Jersey. But we needed someone else to go with him because it should really be a two-person job. And it was getting late in the semester, so I figured, sure, I could call up some friends on campus and someone would help. I ended up calling 26 people. Same pitch. Hey, do you want to go on an adventure with Jeff Akopian to go recall a drone from a tree in New Jersey? And 26 people said, yes, that sounds amazing. 25 of them said, but something, classes, homework, whatever. So eventually we got a friend, a student, James, to come along. And they made some sort of makeshift trampoline and managed to knock it out of the tree and catch it in this hula hoop trampoline contraption that they constructed.
That's impressive.
I will add, though, it was contingent upon the use of Jeff's bow and arrow. So he took a fishing line, shot that over the branch, and then used that to pull a rope that then they used to shake the branch to then get it into that trampoline device.
That's a better story than what you did, Remy. I'm sorry. An electric plane.
That's a rescue.
Who cares?
Retrieving that drone.
Who cares?
That was
Let's get
impressive.
the bow and arrow guy on here, honestly.
We can call Jeff, see if he wants to hop on real quick. Jeff's helped out with a lot with the flyover, and as Zach said, many other projects on campus. Lives locally in Easton, really awesome guy, and always gets it done. You know, the get it done kind of mindset.
I think the best part of that story is that they chose to call you, Remy, as if you didn't have enough on your plate. You know, you're only flying, you're taking off in your all electric plane. You're not worried about anything else. So thank goodness they looped you in to talk
go get the drone
to him
too.
and say, do not leave the drone behind.
All I could think was, I'm getting booted immediately. Like, he's going to be pissed when we see him at Stewart. Like, there's no way he's not going to be angry with me.
But the drone's fine.
Yeah, that's
But it all works
amazing.
out.
That's great.
Right? It all worked out. The drone had a couple broken props. So I don't know. What was that? 10, 15 bucks. It was back up and flying. Everything's all working. No problem with the camera or anything like that.
Is that the drone that we met in New Jersey a couple weeks ago, a month ago?
No, that's a different drone.
Different drone.
The
Okay.
drone that was in the tree and used for the flyover is the schools, and the communications department now has
Personal
it.
property.
The drone you
of the
saw
school.
was
Very
my
good.
personal drone. Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
So we ended up getting a comment here. It looks like our friend Mac Merritt there wants to see the entire documentary. Now, we did make a documentary about this whole thing. There was a lot of footage. As we said, we had the drone shots. I think you had an actual camera crew with you on the way out, right? So there was a lot of
camera crew in the helicopter. I was just going to add. Yeah, there's a helicopter off our wing filming the footage.
Yeah, so they had an entire crew. I think you had how many GoPros on that thing as well? There was some really good
6.
Really good footage off the plane as well. And you guys ended up putting it together as a documentary, am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You want to talk a little bit about that and what why it hasn't been public? He mentioned he saw a few of the videos that were posted in the forums, but nothing of the professional footage.
Yeah. So that all got edited up and premiered at San Francisco Climate Week in April. Zach and I flew out to San Francisco for that. And since then, we're putting together a list of film festivals that we want to submit it to. So it'll be going through some film festivals this fall, and then will most likely become public late fall, early winter of this year. That's the projected timeline that we've been working with some film advisors with. We're both new to the film festival documentary kind of scene. So I wanted to make sure that we followed the programmatic route. So that's what it's going to be.
Luckily, 4 of us on right now have seen it. I think Joe, you're the only one that has not. We were fortunate enough to have a screening of it, and good stuff. Really, really, really well done.
It's amazing. It was really, really good. Remy actually joined us for a meetup with our Lightning Club, the Northeast Lightning Club, and gave us how many do we have there? 30 some odd people there. Gave us a little screening, and it was really good. It's hard to describe how awesome it was. It was just as awesome as hearing about the event and jumping in on it. The night that I joined I was on the leg back to the owners. It was in Pennsylvania. No, I'm sorry, Connecticut, right? Is where we ended up.
Hartford. Yep.
You guys had me come down the night before down to Pennsylvania, and I think I got 4 hours of sleep because I got there super late because I had some charging issues on the way down. Good old Electrify America keeping up their rates. But so I ended up making it down there, got a couple hours of sleep, jumped back in the truck at 3:00 in the morning, made it over to our first airfield, and we started the leg back. I actually fell off. We had done that first one where I crashed the drone, then leapfrog over to Stewart, charged you guys up, and after that I was depleted. I had to go recharge my truck, and we ran into the infrastructure issue that I've talked about a couple times on here. Newark Walmart there. I'm sorry, Newburgh, excuse me. Was completely full. There was about 4 other trucks that were waiting, or 4 other vehicles that were waiting. So it was going to be at least an hour and a half, and it was putting me way behind on time. So I gambled and shot over to Connecticut. And so tried to hit a one there. They were all derated down to 30 kilowatts only. It wasn't working out. After that, I tried to jump over to another one in Connecticut, made it on I think I had 5 miles left on the truck. This is the lowest I've ever driven the truck. Recharged up there. By the time I finished charging there, it was 8:00 at night, and you guys were all on a plane flying back to Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, so the thing I was going to pepper in is that it sounds like, so we've got this documentary that's already been made about it, and you guys have already been privy to seeing it. But you need that dramatic through line of is the trip going to happen? And here's all the things that can go wrong. So Remy, which what was the biggest obstacle? You were like, if I had to choose why this may fail, what was going to be the barrier that you were most nervous about? Was it the trucks not being able to charge and you're just show up at a stop and no one's there? Or was it conditions or the range of the plane? What were you most nervous about?
Yeah, so it was an entirely a regulatory issue. I think that's a great question. I don't get it that often. I talk about it in the documentary, but this was a project that from the outset, after we went to a local dealership, Jeff and I actually, speaking of going back to Jeff being always there to help out, he has a Tesla, and we wanted to make sure that we could charge, the truck could supply the amount of power that it said it could. We went to a local dealership. The first one said, no, you're not touching our truck. The second one said, no, you're not touching our truck. We kept going around to all the dealerships in the area until we finally found one that said, yes, you can use the plug on our truck. Big shout out to Haldeman Ford. They were great. They were the one people who were like, yeah, we know that this works and we'll prove it to you by letting you use it.
That's great.
We charged the Tesla directly from the truck, saw that it could give us 240 at 30 amps. And that's when we knew, yeah, this is going to work. And it was almost infuriating how much time I had to spend on the phone with people working out all the logistics and all the regulatory issues. After we knew that this did not defy the laws of physics. Like, we could charge a plane from airport to airport and do a flyover, but the majority of the work was convincing people at Lafayette to get on board with it, putting together the logistics of the crew. Mm-hmm. But then the biggest thing, to answer your question of if I had to choose one, would have been the FAA, because they've never, in order to do a flyover, you have to get what's called a certificate of waiver. No, waiver of certificate. One of the two. Certificate of waiver. Yeah,
you need a certificate or a waiver.
I think it has both. It's a weird name, so it has both of those in it. It's the form 7711-2. So if anyone wants to look it up, that's the form. If you search FAA 7711-2. But that's basically saying, I want to be granted permission to break this law. You literally have to find what law you want to break. You put it into the form and you say, I would like permission to break this law. And you say how much you want to break it by.
Wow.
So by what altitude you want to fly at, right? So they have never granted one of these waivers forms before for an electric plane anywhere in the United States. The company who builds these planes, Textron eAviation, they only told me this afterwards because they didn't want to dissuade me in the moment. But they said, we really didn't think that you were going to get this. And I was like, okay, cool.
Oh, that's messed up.
But then we did, and I'm glad they didn't tell me that beforehand. But while it took longer than expected, I was surprised by how great. I mean, the FAA gets a lot of flack from people because they're just dealing with so many different complaints, issues, regulations, stuff like that. But the office that we worked with here in Allentown was really awesome. It took a little bit longer than expected, but we got the form. I mean, I say this in the documentary, but the day I got that email, I remember it so vividly. I saw it pop up. I clicked it. I saw the little box that was checked with approved. I slammed my computer shut. I just started running around the college campus, just high-fiving everybody. It was so great because I'd already put probably like 100 hours into this, and so many people were excited about it. I was at a board of trustees dinner, and the president of the college points to me and is like, oh, and Remy's over there, and he's going to be doing a flyover, the first one in the world. It's like all these people know about this. They're all asking me like, oh, excited to see the flyover, We don't have the waiver at the point. So in the back of my mind, I know I was telling you, Joe, about how I lost sleep about things. Yeah. It was like, okay, what are we going to do? What's the backup if we don't get this? But we got it, and it happened. So, yeah, big props to the FAA.
Earlier in the beginning, Pete, you may mention that there was a couple of world records that were set. Remy, what exactly were those world records?
Yeah, so the first one is very specific because people have done electric flights between states before. There are a bunch of other electric planes that are a little bit more experimental than the one that we used. But this was the first time electric planes been recharged with the battery packs of vehicles. So that was one, the first interstate automobile vehicle battery powered flight.
That's awesome.
Which is very specific, very niche. But the more impactful one that we were really mostly excited about was it being the first electric plane stadium flyover. So you think of football games where or baseball games where you have national anthem flyovers, big huge military jets. Any flyover like that is from. We asked for help from a lot of researchers at Lafayette College. Did tons and tons of digging. No one could come up with anything. So it's possible someone else did it and just published no photos and no record of it happening.
Right, there's no record of all of it.
To the best of our knowledge, this was the first time that anyone's ever done a stadium flyover or a national anthem flyover in an electric plane.
Well, it's the first one I've ever helped with.
Yeah.
Well, if I can jump in, I would love to learn more, Pete, about the role you played in all of this specifically. So, like, did Remy just reach out and say, "Hey, we want to raise awareness about this before the game, and so host a tailgate," or flesh out for me how that worked out?
So Remy reached out to our club in a number of different ways, but then we reached kind of back channel to him. And there was expressed, I told Remy on behalf of the club, Joe and I, we have members that are willing to help in a lot of states. I said, where do you need the help, Remy? And at that point, they're like, Pete, to be honest with you, we need a vehicle at the tailgate. So not taking part in the caravan. So I drove the 4.5 hours down. And thank you guys for putting me up. Very nice hotel, by the way. Thank you. No, and I actually charged my vehicle in the parking garage overnight, so that was nice. I was at full charge, so I could, help everyone make pancakes the next day.
That's the important work.
Yeah. So Joe, you shared a story about your trip back and the infrastructure. On my way back from Pennsylvania, I made it to Manchester, Connecticut, and I stopped at the Walmart, and it was an absolute nightmare. Vehicles, first of all, my Lightning barely fit in the spot. I was sticking out 3 feet into the lane of travel. I took just enough to get home because there were 4 people waiting behind me, and I had to wait for 3 people. So, we still have issues here.
Yeah, but so Pete, you when you first initially got I think did we see the tweet from Jim Farley? Is that where this all started, or did you
I don't remember the genesis of it because Remy, I'm not sure you know exactly who you reached out to or who reached out to who first, as far as that. But I basically let it be known that we were there to help in any capacity, and that's what kind of started this whole thing. That's why you drove down to Pennsylvania and stayed, overnight.
So once you became involved and got contacted by these guys, you really organized it for the club of who was going to be jumping on what leg and who's getting in. You got me into the whole thing for the trip back, and we ended up making a team. I think what do we have? 6 trucks on the way back? Is that right?
I'm not sure, Remy. Or Zach,
I'm going to pass that off to Zach because I was mostly in the plane.
Yeah, well, and Zach would know more about this than I would.
Yeah,
I don't remember the exact number on the way back, but I know that all told we had 11 or 12 different drivers with trucks helping on both legs. Some people were.
So on the way back, I told my story how I ended up falling off after the first stop. We ended up getting, I think, 2 or 3 more members that jumped in on the back end of the trip to backfill me, which ended up working out really well and getting you guys to your destination. So, again, I still to this day, our membership is ridiculous. They come through every time, and I love that we have such a great community that we built, and love to see that we were able to come out and help you guys out. But
I do want to say something. Well, along that vein, Remy, the last time we were with you at Tom's house, we were remiss. Joe and I had done something. We actually have an award for you and a certificate. Yeah, no lie, and I forgot to bring it down to New Jersey. So can I just read this real quick? It's a nice little award. I'll send it to you. It's a certificate of appreciation given to Remy Oaktai It was January 21st. That's how old this thing is. By the Northeast Lightning Club in recognition of your significant contributions, achievements, skills, and talents in the fields of engineering and electrified transportation. Because to be honest with you, Remy, had it not been for you involving us, and Joe, you might agree, I'm not sure our club would have taken off as it has. And now
100%.
Joe turned it international because, right, you're in Canada.
Yeah. Yep.
The U.S. So this, because of this, and this was the first big thing we did, huh, Joe?
Yeah. Exactly.
Because of this,
Wow.
our club is what it is, and we're doing like we did a Toys for Tots thing.
Yep.
We're turning it into altruism. You know what I mean? The Lightning has opened up the avenue for us to do these things. It's great, really is.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. No, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I mean, I will add that, I mean, it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me, Zach. It wasn't just me, Zach, and Trevor. I mean, if you look at the credits of the documentary, I put it when we put that together, Zach, was it 109 or 119? It was
Wow.
Yeah, well,
it was
these were
over
like
$100.
$100, so that goes.
So yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying like order one of those for every single one of those people. But that's really, I mean, it was a whole team effort, and I'm so glad to hear that was kind of a spark for the club. And
It was.
I'm really excited for when the documentary comes out publicly later this year, when you all can share it on all your channels, because it features a lot of your vehicles. So, and we didn't say specifically the Northeast Lightning Club, but all of your names are of course in it.
Doesn't matter. We're happy to help individually
driver.
and as a group.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it was an awesome team effort, but really appreciate that recognition and note. That'll be a lot of fun to get and put on a desk or something. We'll put it right next to Pipistrel sent us a little model plane after the flyover.
Oh, awesome.
Dress model plane.
I hope
put
it's
that right
small
next to
because so's this.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. It's funny at the event they sent it to us before the event, and the vice president of Textron eAviation, the company that builds the planes, Fletch, he's a Lafayette alum, so that's how we were able to connect with Textron, because they had to do some custom software building for this in order to make sure that the plane talked properly with the truck through the charger and such. I will also mention, Pete, you mentioned earlier that there was someone from Michigan, from Ford, who was at the event, and that was Keith Oglesby. I don't know, Zach, do you want to talk about Keith's role at the tailgate some, and who he was, or do you want me to chat about that?
I was not at the tailgate, so I think it would be.
You talked to him more than I did.
You were running your ultra marathon, right?
That was the one day I couldn't be there. It was the actual day of the event.
Oh my gosh.
Nowhere nearby.
Right, which I will say, in terms of appreciation for people, I cannot thank Zach enough. We played this song during the whole lead up to this. Imagine, or Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons, and that was kind of the theme of this. That we knew that it didn't break the laws of physics. We knew that we weren't breaking any laws of a country or a moral compass. So we knew it was possible, and it just needed effort to get it done. And we were, what was it, Zach? We were making the banner, and you didn't know how to make banners, and then you just stayed up until 3 a.m. and just taught yourself how to use Adobe Illustrator and just made a really awesome banner. So Zach is like the legend of that. And I said to him, does that come from running ultra marathons, where your body's saying I need to stop, and you're just saying I'm locked in? I don't know if you want to talk more about that, Zach, of your mentality, because that's really what made this happen.
I think it is a similar mentality. I think the Whatever It Takes sums it up really well. There were a lot of late nights of 2 hours of sleep, up till 3, up super early. A lot of it in the graphics department, a lot of it we needed people to attend a lot of the events that we were scheduling. We had plane tours going on. We were trying to schedule meetups at each of the airports that we were going to be at on that first journey. So there's a lot of behind the scenes. Yeah, and I think there were many, many moments where it was just whatever it takes. Try one thing, try 7 things until you get what works.
Did they put that song in the doc?
No,
Oh,
it's all instrumental stuff.
Okay. I thought maybe the
Yeah.
credit song at least.
Yeah, that would have been a nice touch. Yeah, would have been hard licensing it though. That might have broken our budget.
oh, that's true.
Every time it
Or we-
plays,
or we-
throw 3 pennies.
Yeah.
So,
Or we
so you
call it.
were talking about the Michigan Ford engineer from Michigan that was at the tailgate there.
Yes. So Zach wasn't there. I was there before the flyover and then after the flyover. But yeah, so Keith O'Glesby, who was the guy from Corporate Ford who was at the event, is a Lafayette alum, and he actually, or Lafayette engineering alum, and his team built the first prototype F-150 Lightning, which was such a fun connection. When I figured that out.
Right.
So when putting this project together, it was like, we needed the truck, we need the plane, and a Lafayette alumni from our engineering department built the first prototype one, and the vice president of the company who builds the planes is also a Lafayette alum. So it was kind of a perfect,
Yeah.
I mean, the stars really aligned with this. It was crazy.
Aren't
That's
you
awesome.
glad you didn't go to another engineering school?
Right, yeah.
This wouldn't have happened.
True.
Well, speaking of the flyover, just to pepper this in, who won the football game?
Ooh.
We did. I was
Okay.
there on the sideline.
Yes.
So funny story, right? We actually did 2 flyovers. So ESPN doesn't start broadcasting until the game kicks off, but that's after the national anthem is played. So if we wanted to do a national anthem flyover, then the crowd could see it, but ESPN people streaming around the world, because the Lafayette and Lehigh plan, I think, like 50 international viewing parties for all their alumni around the world, that they couldn't see it. So they said, "Can you do 2 laps?" And I said, "Sure." So we did one for the national anthem. Did a little circuit, like 5-minute circuit. Went back to the airport, and by the time we landed, we were watching the game in the hangar. We look at the score, and Lafayette had just scored a touchdown. We're like, "Oh, great! Woohoo! Awesome!" The second quarter rolls around. No one else has scored. It's time for our second flyover. We hop back in the plane, take off, go do our little loop. Woohoo! Great! Go back and land. Look back at the scoreboard. They scored again. It's now 14-0. And we're like, okay. I said to Phil, who's the owner of the plane, and was the drone operator and co-pilot while I was doing the loops around the field. I said, we got to just keep doing this. Once a quarter, we just got to keep going, because they're scoring every time, because the bottoms of the wings are wrapped with "Go Lafayette" and "Bring the Roar." So and they're 30-inch letters, so you can easily see them from the ground. So you're thinking like that's firing up the football team, but we kept it at 2. Yeah, you can see some of the lettering right there. And my friend from high school runs a vinyl car wrapping shop, and I called him up. The school wanted me to tow a banner behind the plane, but that was not allowed within the limitations of the plane. So someone suggested getting the wings wrapped, and I called up my friend. I was like, "Hey, Tanner, any chance you want to wrap an airplane?" And he was like, "Yes, yeah, I will totally do that." So he did an outstanding job. I mean, the spacing on the lettering, the adhesion, like everything is spot on. He drove out from New York, which is where I'm from, went to high school. And yeah, this was a perfect project of just so many different people from so many different spheres of my past, present, life that all came together to really rally to make this happen. But that's the lettering that's on the bottom of the wings. And then people were scoring, or the Lafayette was scoring. We got back to the field at the end of the 4th quarter, and Lehigh was starting to catch up. It was a real nail biter of a game. I'm not a big sports person myself, but I was so invested in that game. Oh my gosh. Because if we lost, that would have just put a whole kibosh on everything. But I stormed the field when we won. So
it was a great ending to what was, it was a great flyover. Now, the tailgate, for those who don't know, at Lafayette, the parking garage where we held the tailgate actually looks out over the field. We had one of the best views, we were up here. So we're looking at the plane, from a very different perspective than people down below at the game. It was absolutely spectacular to see the field down below us and Remy in the plane right just in front of us. I mean, that was a spectacular spot to be. So I'm thankful that I got to see it from there.
So overall, Remy, how many hours do you think you put into this entire thing?
I think it was right around 350 over 9.5 weeks.
Wow.
Jeez.
And that wasn't like 9.5 weeks like started a year ago. Like that was 9.5 weeks before this actually happened. Like it was all crunch time right from the get-go.
Yeah, it was 350 within 10 weeks. While doing 5 classes in college. It was go time.
That's crazy.
It was whatever it takes.
What's the range? What's the electric range of the plane?
It is about an hour of flight time going. Let me see if I can remember the stats off the top of my head. It works out to be about I think 85 nautical miles if you drain the battery from 100 to 0. But you have to land with 30 minutes of reserve per FAA guidelines or regulations. And we wanted to have enough juice so that we could fly from our departure airport to our destination airport, have some issue there before we can land. Like there's a deer on the runway, there's some issue, turn around and then go back and still have enough to get back to our departure and land.
Oh,
It's
God,
funny
can
how
you imagine if we had to turn that around and redo the whole stop. Sorry. The logistics of that would have been a nightmare, though.
Well, and it's funny, it jumps out at me how similar that sounds to driving an electric vehicle. Obviously, the range being different, but, you know, hearing you want to leave the reserve, like, it's just interesting how different yet how similar they are. How stressful was it? I saw a second person in these pictures of the plane, and I immediately thought, who was that? So that was the owner of that aircraft. How stressful was it, like, driving with him right there? Was there this nervousness of, you know, like, what if something goes wrong and he's right here?
Yeah, so the way we did it is the plane's very particular in takeoff and landing. It's a really light plane. I'm licensed to fly any single engine land aircraft. So I legally could have flown it, but there's in aviation, you talk about currency versus proficiency. So what can you legally do versus what do you have recent practice with doing? And I definitely did not have any recent practice with flying a plane like this. Once you're up in the air, kind of just doing turns, descending, climbing, navigating, stuff like that. Any plane's pretty much exactly the same. But just takeoff and landing are very specific to each plane. So I said to Phil, I said, hey, you want to teach me for like 5-10 hours how to do takeoffs and landings in this plane? And he's like, you know, Remy, you're legally allowed to fly this plane. Yes. But this plane is one of 12. The spare parts for it are really, really hard to come by. They come from Europe. There's a huge lead time, and you're a young pilot. You're a college student, so I totally trust you. But we're definitely flying this plane together. And I was like, okay, fair. If I was in your shoes, I would make the exact same decision. So the way we did it is Phil did all the takeoffs and landings, and then once we got a few hundred feet in the air, then I would take over fly to the airport, and then pass it back off to him right before coming into land, and he would do the landing. But in terms of en route flying, I mean, there's so little to do. I mean, when I'm flying gas planes, you're constantly looking at how lean your mixture is, all your cylinder head temperatures, your exhaust gas temperature, your oil pressure, how much fuel you have left, which is the same for electric plane. But I mean, it's just so much more simple. You have, in a gas-powered plane, usually you have 3 levers. You adjust your throttle, you adjust the pitch of your propeller, you adjust your mixture control. On the electric plane, it's 1 lever. Go faster, go slower. That's pretty much it. To turn it on, it's like 2 little switches, and then you go. So it's super easy to fly. I was never worried or concerned while we were up in the air. We had done a bunch of practice flights, so we knew how to tag team it while we were up there. And it's always a pleasure to fly with another pilot because you can say, oh, is that the right landmark? Because we're flying VFR. How does this look? What do you think about this? Can you do this radio call while I do this? Bring the power back. Oh, yep. So it's just great to, whenever I'm flying other planes too with other people, it's like when I fly with my sister and can say, hey, can you do all the control or all the radio calls while I do all the flying? It's just makes everything so much more pleasant.
Now, Remy, the plane you were flying in does have a parachute, correct?
Yes, it has a full frame parachute. So if anything goes horribly wrong, then you just pull a little lever, and then a parachute goes up, and the whole plane descends via parachute.
So it goes
And
up
gets stuck
over
in
the
the tree
top of the
like a
wing.
drone, and then you go get it.
Come on,
Right.
Pete.
Okay.
So the parachute comes out over the wings and basically just holds the whole plane up.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep,
That's
it has
impressive.
straps, one that connects to the front of the plane, two in the back, and just if you want to, they don't have any videos online of that specific plane, but if people are interested in that, Cirrus Aircraft is one of the most popular plane companies right now, and their characteristic, or their planes are characteristically known for all having full frame parachutes. Even their
That's really
small
cool.
jet has a full frame parachute.
Wow.
So Remy, now that you've talked us through all of that, does that mean that we are now also current and proficient in these techniques, or no? There's probably a little more to it than that.
It's just a little bit more. Most of it's just talking.
Okay, I'm sure you can.
It's
you can text
really
me.
little. Yeah. It's like if you know how to use a Game Boy or like a PlayStation joystick, it's pretty much the same thing.
Sure.
Got it.
We're not going to the Titanic in this, are we?
No.
Oh, too soon. Sorry. So Remy, I do have one big question. When are you going cross country to all the other Northeast Light or all the other Lightning clubs to join you in a cross country flight?
I think that
So-
needs to be the next trip.
Yes.
We've got
I mean,
6
if we can. Sorry, go
Go
ahead.
No, I was going to say we've got 6 clubs from the West Coast to the East Coast and all the way, like we said, up to Canada. So, you're completely covered where you want to land.
Yeah, no, and that is a great question. The one, it would take a lot of logistic work. 2, we're kind of yeah, surprisingly, who would have guessed? But more importantly, we are very much privileged in the Northeast here by the amount of airports we have. If you look at a map, what was nice about this was when I was mapping this out on my flight planning software, I was like, oh, we want to fly about 30 nautical mile legs so that we can do that turnaround and go back. And you can just anywhere throughout Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, all these states here, you can connect pretty much any direction in 30 nautical miles and you'll find another airport. That's not the case so much in the Midwest and out on the West Coast. So it might require more private airfields, which isn't a huge limitation. In terms of logistics, though, and this is where, I mean, I don't know how jokingly you were saying this, because I mean, it's something that I would consider doing. But if we were to get one of these planes and I were to fly it just by myself instead of with someone else, then we could put that outboard charger in the co-pilot seat so that then the plane can actually be flown without having a vehicle carry the charger to each next stop.
Any truck can meet you. Right.
So all you need is
And then
a truck
any
to ready
Lightning
to
truck
airport.
could meet us at the airport with a full charge, and you could kind of go however far you want. So if anyone has $250,000 to buy one of these planes and wants to Venmo me, Apple Cash,
Venmo.
whatever works, we'll get on ordering one of them. So anybody who's listening, if you want to hit me up, we'll buy one of these planes. We'll make it happen.
You know,
We'll help
you laugh and you joke, but talking to you has truly been inspiring because we've all had ideas that we think we want to achieve, and then the first time we hear no, we give up and we're like, well, it was worth a shot. So, but I'm serious, like, how many EV enthusiasts are there in the United States? Plenty. If everybody gives $1, boom, you got your plane. Like,
that's not wrong.
I'm serious. Like, having seen what you've achieved already, I know it's in the back of your mind. You know that you can achieve this as well. It's just the question of how many years are we going to reconvene this podcast and remember the planning stage that you started today.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, we get Ford on board because it could be Ford wanted to, we were talking with them and the timeline was too short to make it happen, but they wanted to come bring a film crew out and do some of their own filming for this. So if we did something else that had a little bit more lead time, which was definitely a reality of this project, that it just came together super fast. But if we had more lead time, get some more sponsors, $250,000 isn't that unheard of. There's a lot of people on social media, YouTube, that do a lot crazier things. So sign me up to fly the plane. if we can get the money together, because that would be really cool.
Ford's been very supportive, huh, Joe? Would you agree with me?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if it'd be $250,000 supportive, but
no.
Right.
yeah, I mean, we definitely we've made some big connections with Ford with the Model E team, and I'm sure we could get them back on board for something like that. But this is, I mean, if we really do, I was half joking and half serious. Like, if we really want to do this, we could definitely
You don't
start
joke with
now.
Remy.
Yeah, I'm not someone to joke around with ideas with, because I'll take them seriously.
My
Yeah,
joke
don't
went out the
drive
window
for
when I started listening to you, and I was like, all right, I'm in. He's got this. We're totally in. So no, we'll have to talk off camera for a little more details on that. But
Yeah.
Joe, do you have any other questions?
Yeah. So, I mean, usually this is our first aircraft podcast we've done. Usually we talk about automotive. So I'm going to rope it back into our usual theme. Like, what car do you drive, and has this experience, at least, you said you were in an EV and you said you were an EV enthusiast. So has this deepened your love? Like, are you like, oh, I can't wait to get my own Lightning? Tell us how that, changed your perspective.
I'm going to first pass that question to Zach, because when we were premiering this film in San Francisco, we rented a Model 3 to go drive around on the day before our event. And that was Zach's first time driving the EV. So I think this is a perfect time to get Zach's take on that, and then I'll answer the question.
Okay.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. The whole San Francisco adventure was pretty phenomenal. Very cool to have the film and get to premiere it there. I would say the biggest takeaway for me was, and maybe Joe can speak to this too, was that driving the Tesla in San Fran and seeing how the Teslas in our convoy held up, the infrastructure at the time was just far superior, far more superior than anything that the Ford Lightnings had.
Yep.
So we had 10, 11 trucks between the two different trips, and both times were lost trucks. A couple times it was due to charging issues. One time it was because the helicopter broke and we needed someone to transport people back, but mostly it was just we had to have that many trucks because of the charging time and how it worked out with the logistics. So I think the biggest difference, the big advantage of the Ford truck is that it can do all of these incredible things like charging airplanes or bouncy houses, popcorn soup. We have people making all sorts of things off the back. But the downside is the infrastructure. So I think that's the next big step up.
There was some news this week, bringing this back to, or like Joe said, bringing it back to the Lightning topics here. There was news this week that 7 major automakers are also building a new infrastructure for fast charging throughout the country. That was huge news. I think it was just yesterday they announced it. That's really great on paper. Obviously, we'll have to see how they implement it. But if that comes to fruition, we now have 3 major charging networks that we will be able to charge off of in 2024. So, going forward, if that comes out the way they're saying it's going to, I think the infrastructure issue in America may be less of an issue, and mass adoption would be almost instantaneous, I think.
Let's hope.
And we would better be able to support Remy on his cross-country flight. Most importantly, I want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Full circle. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
all right, so we have a date now.
We just need to have a bake sale, and then we'll have enough money.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So Remy, what are you driving? Is it an EV? Let's start there.
So I'll first say my family's vehicles and then me personally. Because if I could have an EV myself, I'd sign me up. I'm the first one in line. Financial barriers are definitely there. So my parents are fully electric. They actually have a fully electric house. So it's all heat pumps, all solar and wind energy, electric cooktop, electric oven, no gas, nothing. They have a Tesla Model S and a Nissan Leaf.
Nice.
So they're fully electric driving, and they're living the dream. I currently have the old beater of a car, a 2011 Saab, that is unfortunately gas.
Saab. You said Saab. Okay, throwback to the now defunct Saab. Okay.
Yeah, but what else
Yep.
do you drive, Remy? What else do you drive?
And I have a converted school bus. That was another COVID project. In addition to getting my pilot's license, my sister and I both bought school buses from a school district and ripped out all the seats and turned them into little tiny homes on wheels.
Nice.
Which is a super fun project. They are solar powered in the sense that the fridge, freezer, cooktop, charging devices, fans, all that stuff is all solar powered. So once you're parked, you're powered by the sun.
Wow.
When it's driving, it is still a gas drivetrain. When we bought them at the time in 2020, they did not make electric buses, but now they do. So next bus build is going to be a fully electric bus. My
Excellent.
uncle is actually working on one of those as we speak.
Oh.
So he's making that happen.
Is he in the Northeast?
Yeah, he's in New Hampshire. Yeah.
Oh, yes, very nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, he's big into the tiny home. He built a tiny home and then took it from a trailer and put it on pontoons and floats it around a lake during the summer.
Oh,
and now
wow.
his new project is going to be doing that on the back of a Ford Transit van electric frame.
Wow, e-transit.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Very
and
awesome.
Lafayette College just bought Styx e-transits, I'm told,
Oh, awesome.
Very
for
good.
our facilities operations team.
That's fantastic.
Fun little fact of the day. But yeah, does that answer your question, Joe? I'm kind of the worst,
Oh, yeah.
right? In
No,
terms of having
you're
two
not.
gas vehicles. But one day I will get there. So
Yeah,
That's
well,
the
it's
current
only a matter
situation.
of time. If you keep breaking world records and thinking the way that you do, yeah, you'll be able to afford a Model 3 in no time, I promise.
let's hope. Let's hope.
Yeah. Joe, I'm glad you brought up the new charging deal, but do you feel like we need to flesh out this adventure? I mean, so it sounds like this trip with Remy and the 108 other people that came together to make this happen, it sounds like a truly galvanizing experience of it took a bunch of Lightning owners and really solidified it into the Northeast Lightning Club. Does that sound like an accurate?
Absolutely. I mean, all we had before this event was 12 of us in a parking lot in Chicopee, Mass. You know, it was a whim of mine to get us all together. And then Remy asked us to do this, and it completely so it built our network instantly. You know, we needed trucks to backfill, and we had people on standby in other states that were, all right, I'm out of work at 2:00. I'll be down there. And it was just, we worked really well together. And we've carried that out since and continued meeting up and doing different types of events. Obviously nothing as crazy as powering an electric airplane in the middle of an airfield. But you know, we're trying to do some monumental things like that, but I don't have the connections that Remy does over there.
Hey, and
So,
can I
Rem-
just wait real quick? I just wanted to
Yeah.
shout out to Zach. I wanted to thank him because he was the one that when I was on my way down to Pennsylvania, I'm pretty sure, Zach, you're the one that took care of Joe and I's hotel.
Oh, yeah.
And I know it was a last second thing, and I appreciate it. So I just wanted to give you, I never had an opportunity to thank you personally. So this is personal as I can get. So thank you, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of my many late night duties.
No, I figured you were busy. And then you were running a marathon the next day. Give me a break.
Yeah.
No, not just a marathon, an ultra marathon, right? It was
Oh.
was it a 50 or 100, Zach?
Yeah, this one was 50.
Come
It was
on.
a 50.
So
Zach's an animal. He is
I woke up
incredible.
with a sore back that morning.
This is what we
From
call
nothing.
this is what we call unrelatable content, because I can't remember the last time I ran 1 mile, let alone 50.
so Zach was actually my co-pilot. I think, did you come off the race and then come back for the return trip that following day? Is that what that was?
Yes, I think it was.
Yeah. He gets in my truck and he's like, "Hey, do you mind if I eat some oatmeal? I just ran a 50-mile marathon yesterday." I'm like, "Okay, first of all, no, I don't mind if you eat something because you ran a 50-mile marathon. I'm never going to tell you no. You know, I can't run 10 miles, so you're good, bud. Like, go, you do you." But I was like, "All right, I just met you 5 seconds ago and you're flexing with the 50 miles, man. All right."
Well, I really appreciate. I want to extend a thank you to all the clubs too, because it was really heartwarming seeing when we reached out to all of the Lightning Club owners, all of the EV Club owners in the Northeast, Jersey, Connecticut, everywhere remotely close to where the plane was journeying. It was pretty instant. I remember there was one again late night, sent out 30 emails scheduled for the morning, and an hour or two later, almost all of them I had responses from different EV clubs, people saying, yes, this is amazing, absolutely, we'll come out to see. And the day of, I remember it was early in the morning. We left, I think we woke up at 4 or something, might have been earlier. And the first meetup that we had scheduled was maybe 6 a.m. So we still got a few people. It was pretty cool to see. But by the afternoon, the rain had come in. You can see it in the documentary. That ended up being the biggest meetup, but the skies were cloudy. The rain had started coming down. We weren't sure how many people were going to show up. And then this flock from the EV owners, everyone who's excited to see the plane. We had a group of probably, I don't know, maybe 50 people. It was really exciting and heartwarming to see the response from the communities.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great idea. I mean, my reason for I literally put time off in at the last second and was like, I'm out. I'm leaving. I'm going to Pennsylvania. For what? I was like, dude, you can't pass up powering an airplane with my truck. That's the coolest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
It was just such a once in a lifetime opportunity to be a part of. So I don't think no was even an option on the questionnaire you guys sent.
Yes or maybe.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And I'll quickly add to what Zach was saying about those groups, because I wasn't Zach and Trevor, who also helped out with this project, and the three of us were kind of there late into the nights working out all the details and stuff. Zach and Trevor really put all the work into organizing those meetups. And it was such a fun surprise because we would pull into an airport in the plane, Phil and I, we'd hop out and we'd see who was there. And it was, as Zach said, that one later in the day, so during normal visiting people doing stuff hours, not 6 a.m. And it was raining, but we pull in and everybody's just huddled under this little 10 by 10 tent. One of the Lightning owners, John, who was driving, had a tent with him. Everybody had all this backup equipment. It was great. And there's just this group that's just cheering. We're pulling in. We're like, woo, you're here. It was awesome. And then they gave me a flag from their group because some of their other members were going to meet us at one of the other airports. So we folded up the flag, put it in the back of the plane, and then did the next leg. And then the rest of the group met us at Greenwood Lake. We opened up the flag and then took a picture with it. So that was a really fun
cool
note, and just another fun anecdote from the whole trip of the fun experiences.
That's really awesome.
Remy, did you say you're in Allentown, Pennsylvania? Is that where you are currently? I'm literally going to be there next weekend.
Oh, cool. If you want to swing by, Allentown's right next to Easton. So Lafayette's in Easton. So it's a 15, 20-minute drive. But if you want to swing by, you're more than welcome to come.
I'll keep an eye out for some electric planes up in the front.
Yeah.
Do a couple of these. Okay. All right. Keep an eye out for you over there.
Looking.
Well, you won't hear it. That's the thing. So many of my friends after the flyover, right? Because Lafayette Lehigh, the football game, is not only a football game, but it's also a big drinking, partying kind of event for students.
Of course.
So many of my friends, they don't even go to the game. They just go to the parties, right? And they said to me, oh, did you do the flyover? I was like, yeah. And you didn't see it? And they're like, no, I was listening for it, but I didn't hear anything. And I was like, that's the whole point.
That's the point.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You missed it because of the point of it. So had to show them some pictures and videos.
Yeah. Well, speaking of pictures, this one that I keep flipping up here, I'm sure you've scheduled a tattoo of this on your back. I'm guessing, right? Or no?
Yes.
Not going to commemorate it for the rest of your life? Because this picture is incredible. Is this
I think I'm going to do...
Yeah,
little plane on my leg or ankle or something.
Yeah, you have to commemorate the trip for sure.
It should have a cord coming out of it, right?
Yeah.
Into a truck.
Yeah, there you go. A little extension cord.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Joe, those are the GoPros that I had mentioned earlier. They're mounted in a bunch of different places. I think you had one underneath as well, and then under both wings. Yeah, the shots that came out of it that ended up in the documentary were breathtaking. I wish I was in the plane too. Obviously I had to be on the ground, but that was such a beautiful view up there. So,
Well, and Joe's too tall to fit in the plane anyway.
yeah,
So that was a non-starter.
Did you try to sit in it though, in all the different legs?
I don't think I only had one. I really only had one shot at sitting in it, and the private airfield there, and we never ended up doing that. But it looked
Okay, because Mel took a flight in the plane with Phil,
Oh yeah, I
and I feel like you guys are probably the same height.
I don't
Next
remember.
time.
Yeah, right. our cross country one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work.
Said it here first.
Well, Joe, do you think you have anything else? I mean, I've really enjoyed talking to the whole crew. And again, I don't mean to get nostalgic or emotional, but it is truly inspiring. And I hope someone who watches this podcast or listens to this story or sees the documentary, I mean, really the message is it's electric plane does a flyover, but it's like the subtext is you can achieve what you're thinking of as long as you're dedicated. What was it? 350 hours to it. So yeah, I've really
put in the beans.
Yeah, the beans. But I have really enjoyed talking to you guys. So thanks for educating me on this trip. And I eagerly await the documentary. I love stuff like that. So I can't wait.
Yeah, I want to see it again.
Same, me too.
That was great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, guys. I that's all I have. Pete, do you have anything else?
No, I just want to say a plug real quick for the Northeast Lightning Club. We do meetups. We've got we've got a coffee in with Ford coming up right in New York.
Yeah, so we're headed to the Electrify Expo August 12th. We're doing a Cars and Coffee just before the expo. I actually last weekend made a whim of a trip to meet Joe finally in person down in Washington, D.C. We went to the expo together down there. It was awesome. With no other way to describe it. You were able to test drive every single electric vehicle, every single bit of e-mobility, scooters, bikes, whatever you want to try.
No planes, though. No planes.
No planes.
We'll have to change that.
Ooh, maybe we could. We'll have to talk. But we're headed down for the Long Island one, August 12th. If you are in the Northeast Lightning Club and watching this, please keep an eye on our Facebook page and our email chain. We will be sending some stuff out for RSVP, so you can get into the expo and enjoy it just like we did last weekend.
Please, Joe, I was just going to say to the club members and people who aren't even in the club, come to our events because it's a great group of people, and if you like, I mean, there's a lot of swag. I'm not going to lie. We've got club stickers. I mean, Ford, when we go to these things, Ford is more than happy to provide, some added value to our meetups. Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, I think, Joe, we can show a ton of swag that we've got.
Oh, Remy's grabbing some too.
I'm doing a Vanna White here.
Yeah, we have something coming up in Palmer, Mass. too.
There you go.
Oh, those stickers.
There's our little logo.
Yes.
If you want some other swag, it's not Ford swag, but it is Lafayette Gets Electric swag with a F-150 charging a plane.
Trust me, we all have those.
You want to see that, Joe?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even notice the F-150. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Hey,
that's our logo that we made for the project.
We'll make plans to get you one, Joe.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Once again, thank you to Remy and Pete and Zach for coming on and backing up my story. You guys had a lot more of the details than I did. So, thanks again. Joe?
Yeah, I think that's all I got. It was so nice to meet you guys, and Pete and Remy and Zach, maybe even. I look forward to meeting you guys in person someday.
You got it. It'll happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for having us. This was a blast.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night.